Hello guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be assembling some Assault Intercessors. I've assembled this guide because I find that quite a few people might be missing the booklet and might be looking for a guide, so feel free to tune in and have a look at how we're doing it. So first you will need a few hobby tools. You'll need your trusty side cutters to get the pieces out of the sprues. You'll need your hobby knife just to clean up and make them look nice and neat. And of course you'll need super glue to attach them and make sure they don't fall apart after you've assembled them. Okay, so for the first part, for the first model we'll be assembling will be the Sergeant, as I'm pointing here on the left top corner of the sprue, or sprue number A. The Sergeant is the more complicated model because it has a variation of parts and a variation of versions that can be a little confusing when you are putting it together. For this specific video we're going to be putting together the Sergeant that is coming with the helmet, and that's going to have a free hand with a chainsword on his belt and a pistol in his left hand, kind of raised up to the sky. So that's the specific one. There's a few other variations. There's one without a helmet, and then he's got the helmet on the belt and a chainsword in his hand. Yeah, so not going to be doing that one specifically, but we will be doing the other one. But at the end of this, when we come to the cleanup and assemble, I will be laying out on the video all the different parts you need with the correct numbers, so you can easily follow along. All the sprue parts, as you can see, I'm cutting out. It's a little difficult to see on the video sometimes, but they are all numbered, so I will be making that clear for every piece, just to make it easy for you guys to follow along. So I'm just busy cutting out here and getting ready to get to the assembly part. So obviously when you do cut out your pieces, it's fairly easy with the side cutter, but do be careful that you don't accidentally cut off pieces of the actual figure. There is a part a bit later in the video, it might be on this model or another one, where I actually accidentally take off a little piece of the bottom neck part. That's not really part of the model, it goes into the model when you assemble it, but it's there to make it a little bit more stable, so do be careful when you are doing that. Just finishing off here with the last little bit, and then we'll head through to cleanup and assembly. Okay, now we're heading into cleanup and assembly. As you can see, I laid out all the numbers there for the individual pieces. Feel free to pause the video and take a good look at them, so you make sure that you're actually applying the correct sections. Just going through here, giving each of the pieces a little bit of a close-up if you guys wanted to take a closer look at them, but this is all the pieces we'll need for this specific Sergeant to kind of put it together. And from here I'm going to head out into the cleanup phase. So obviously as you're doing this, you want to make sure to take off any unnecessary excess pieces of the sprue. Sometimes when you clip off pieces, especially with the arms and the sides, you'll find little pieces of plastic remaining, so you do want to clean that up. Usually I just snip them off where applicable, like here we have it with the leg, and after that you want to use your hobby knife to just smooth out those pieces, take off any remaining excess, and then aside from that you want to go through the unit nicely. Like for instance there's a bit of a mold mark that I took off there. Same on the side of the piece there, and you can even go a little bit further to look at the actual unit, because with some of the pieces you do find mold lines. It's just a natural part of when they're forming the pieces that does appear, and it can come through when you get to the paint stage, and sometimes it's even highlighted a bit at the painting stage. So you do want to make sure your models become, when you do the cleanup section here, so that you do want to make sure that it's as clean and smooth as possible, as this will really come through once we get to the actual painting section, and it will contribute to the final to the final product. So I'm just finishing up here. In the future sections, I'm just gonna fast forward a bit through these pieces. I'm not gonna show it in so much detail for each and every model, otherwise it'll become a bit tedious. But we're heading towards the end now, and then we're gonna head into the actual assembly part of the sergeant. So I like to lay out my pieces nicely first and then get to the point of actual assembly. So what I like to do first is kind of dry fit them, especially with these push pieces. Make sure you kind of know how they fit and how they should fit before you add the glue. So obviously we did that there with the sword piece that goes onto the belt. Just a bit of glue got stuck there, so I'm just cleaning that up quickly before I get to the actual assembly part. But you want to be careful when you use the glue. Firstly, a mistake a lot of people make is using too much. Less is more when it comes to super glue for the most part. You obviously want to use enough, but be careful not to do too much. When you kind of push it in there, it should be a nice fit. Make sure that there's no gap at the back and that it just fits in nicely. Obviously wait for the glue to take hold, and then it should come nicely. Next is the front piece of the actual armor. So as you can see, it's quite straightforward in terms of getting in there. It just kind of pushes into the front. When it comes to the glue, you don't want to get the glue into the actual push holes. That can cause some issues. So I just put a bit on the kind of the sides of it, and then I push it in. It'll basically, for the most part, fit in without even having to use the glue, but the glue is obviously there to make sure it stays there after the fact and it doesn't come loose when you're using the models and actually playing with them and carrying them around and that kind of thing. So make sure you push it in nicely. Some of these struggle a little bit to go in, so you want to be gentle but firm until they fit nicely. Next we're doing kind of this breastplate piece with the shield. The shield is kind of indicative of the sergeants. So same thing, it fits in nice and easily. So first I push it in there, make sure you know it is as I think it is, and then after that apply a little bit of glue around the sides, just enough so that it takes hold, and you push it in there. Quite straightforward. So normally what you would do with the heads, for most of them, you'll fit them first before you do this section. I'll show that for you guys with the coming models, but as I mentioned in the prior piece, I accidentally clipped off a bottom part of this sergeant's head by accident, so whoops. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna make up with that with a bit of extra glue. So yeah, so that's the piece I was referring to that I cut off by accident. So it doesn't matter. All we're gonna do is we're gonna add a bit of extra glue at the bottom and just fit it in, and you won't even be able to tell. A nice thing about these models in general, or Warhammer in general I suppose, is if you do make mistakes, both with painting or assembly, there's nothing that a bit of glue, or just a bit of cleaning up can't either hide or rectify completely. So don't stress too much. If you do make errors, there's nothing too hectic that can go wrong that can't have an easy fix. So there we've got the model. It's coming along nicely now. Basically we just have the arms and the power pack left. So with these models I suggest to kind of pre-fit the arms. Make sure you like the way they kind of stand and how they look before you put on any glue. So you'll see I'm doing that with each of them. Also with the first bunch that I assembled, I was struggling a bit with the arms. Some of them were a little bit awkward. So yeah, you do want to do this dry first without putting on the glue, otherwise you could run into a bit of trouble. As you can see, even with this one I was struggling a bit with that right arm, and some of them want to be very specific. Still struggling with it, still not quite in. So yeah, so before you add in actual glue, make sure you're happy with it, make sure you're happy with the look, make sure it fits properly, all of that, and then they come off easily again, and then you can just do it again properly with the glue. When it comes to the glue section, I don't put it into the arm holes. All I do is I add a gentle amount of light glue around kind of the circular arm bar, and then I just slide it in there as I did previously, and then obviously the glue will dry and make it stick. Once again, less glue, less is more with the glue. If you put on too much glue, you can run into troubles in terms of things fitting, or even sometimes stuff's even just sticking. So yeah, 90% there. Last bit is the power pack, pretty straightforward. Once again, you'll see I'm not putting it in the actual hole there, I'm just putting it around the edges and then fitting the pack nicely how I want it, and then the glue will do the rest. And there we go, Sergeant is complete. I'm going to put him on his base now. Also, final checkup, make sure I'm happy, make sure there's no mold lines or cleanup that I missed initially, and just see if I'm happy with everything. So here's the final part, putting the sergeant on his base, and there we go, finished the first and honestly the most complicated piece in this Assault Intercessor section. So let's go on to soldier number 2. So here we are, on to soldier number 2. And this very similar to the first one, a little bit less complicated. This one I would say is the second most complicated because he has a bit of a loose leg that can be a bit strange and something to get used to, but I'll show that to you guys now. So first of all, obviously we do the same thing, cut out the pieces, be careful not to damage them or clip them by accident, and once again at the end before we get to assembly, I will lay it out nicely with the correct numbers so you guys can just follow along with the actual pieces that we need from the sprue. Okay, time for assembly. So yeah, I've laid out all the pieces. Once again, feel free to pause it and just take note of the relevant numbers. And then obviously I'm going to go through cleanup process again, very similar to the previous side, just make sure everything is nice and neat. I'm speeding it up a little bit just so it takes up a little bit less time. I'm not going to go through it again in so much detail as the first time, it's pretty much more of the same. And then we're going to head over onto the assembly part now. Alright, getting to assembly for soldier number 2. So starting with the breastplate and the loose leg that I mentioned earlier. Just it's quite straightforward. You put it in there, make sure you're happy with kind of the way it fits. Like I mentioned on first glance, this leg can be a little awkward. I already assembled the previous 5 of these, so I'm pretty much comfortable with it. So I just added in a bit of glue, similar with the arms. Make sure it sticks in nicely. Make sure there's no gaps between the actual leg and the crotch area. And yeah, it looks a little weird as it is here because he is kind of standing towards the side. But as we put the rest of the model together, you'll see it'll start to make a little bit more sense. Just what I'm pointing out here is that before I attach the front and the back side of the body, I am going to put the head in. This I couldn't do with the previous one because I made a little error, but as you can see, I put a slight amount of glue, just kind of put it in there. It should stick quite easily, and just carefully put this over. The front and the back side of the chest will clasp the head closed, so it won't be coming out anyway. And obviously also I put a bit of glue on the sides, similar to the way I did it with the sergeant. And there we go, it's coming together now. Putting it on his base, just so we can see kind of the angle of how the marine is standing. And you can see he's kind of in a sideways running pose. And now the leg, I think, makes a little bit more sense in context. Secondly, getting back to the arms again and the power pack. So pretty much the same. Fit the arms first to make sure you're happy with the way it poses and make sure it goes in easily. Once again, this right arm is giving me a little bit of trouble, but eventually I get it in and I'm happy with it. So next is obviously once again put on a little bit of glue. Once again, you don't want to get too much of it into the holes, otherwise it can block it, make it more difficult to actually fit. And to be fair, these arms are a fairly tight fit already as it is. So happy with the left arm. Going on to the right one with the plasma pistol. And basically the same thing again. Just getting it in there. I think once again this one gave me a little bit of trouble, but I got it in. The Space Marine arms can be a bit of an issue at times. But yeah, once again, all around the back, making a note not to cause any issues with it, with the actual hole where it needs to fit in. And then there we go, all done with Space Marine number 2. Okay, and now we're heading into Assault Marine number 3. The last 3 is very similar to each other. So the first 2 models, the Sergeant obviously had a lot more pieces to him, and the second one had that kind of a loose leg. You'll see the molds for the last 3, they're very, very close to each other. So just here pointing it out to you guys. I will also have a part where they are assembled with the necessary numbers, so you guys can follow along and cut out the right pieces to follow along to the actual tutorial. But yeah, I'm just finishing cutting it out here, and then we will head into the next part, which will be cleaning and then assembly. Okay, so here we have the individual pieces laid out, numbered for you guys so you can follow along. We're going to head into cleanup. I'm going to skip through this one, and just to save a little bit of time and tediousness, and we're going to head straight into assembly. But once again, same thing, you want to make sure it's clean, all the additional plastic is off, and that it's nice and smooth when you're ready to go into painting. So heading into actual assembly, like I said, the last 3 soldiers here are all very similar and very straightforward. They only got 6 pieces. They've got the front and the back body pieces, and the head, and the 2, obviously the arm with the gun and the arm with the chainsword, and the power pack. So same with the other one just now. I put on a little bit of glue just around the edges, careful not to get it into the actual holes once again, and then I pre-fit the head with just a little bit of glue, and then once again it's a push fit. This one I think went in quite easily. I think one of these ones I struggle with quite a bit, just to make sure it's a nice clean fit. You want to make sure there's no gaps on the sides. You obviously want the model to be cohesive. So yeah, pretty straightforward. These last three, and all very similar to each other. I'm quite a big fan so far of these Assault Intercessors. I'm busy building my first Blood Angel army for myself, so I'm going to be making a bit more content kind of covering that in the future. I entered a bit of a slow grow, and I'm thinking of making that into a little bit of a series of its own. So if you guys are interested, please keep an eye open for more videos regarding that. But yeah, so here we're finishing off the model, pre-fitted all the arms. Once again, putting on a little bit of glue on the sides and just making sure you're happy with those arm poses, and also make sure that it, doesn't give you any difficulty fitting them in once the glue is on already, otherwise you could run into a bit of trouble. But yeah, that's the model. Nice pose on this guy specifically that I really like. And yeah, last piece is the power pack. And then we're quickly gonna cover the last two remaining models. Okay, and here we're heading in, just finalizing the last two Assault Intercessors that we have left. Very similar to the previous one we did, as I mentioned, so I'm just pointing out here the specific pieces. Once again, I will have a section that just lays out all the specific numbers on the sprue, just to make it easy to follow along. You'll find, aside from the Sergeant with the more complicated setup, they all follow kind of in sequence. So you'll find like if it's number 25 to 31, so there is kind of a logical order to it. At first glance at the sprue, it can be a little bit confusing. It might take a little bit of time looking around, but yeah, pretty straightforward once you get used to it. So there's all the numbers laid out for soldier number 4 and 5, and then we're going to jump straight into actual assembly. As I mentioned, very much like the previous two. So once again, putting glue on the sides, not too much, not too little, and just making sure you're keeping it clear of the actual holes. There, I got a bit of glue on my fingers there. You want to make sure you don't stick your fingers to the pieces. It can be a bit of a hassle if it happens. So I do actually have that bit of tissue paper there to the right, just to both clean the actual glue thing like I did there just now, but also just to clean up maybe excess from the actual figures, or maybe from my fingers if I need to. Something to kind of get used to if you never used super glue before. But yeah, pretty straightforward. This figure is almost done. Gonna put it in its base, and then we're gonna once again head to the part of just fitting the arms and the power pack. Feel free to play around a bit with the bases. The poses can kind of vary, so it's not one size fits all. And obviously it's going to be individual to how you want to make them look, and what direction you want to make them stand, and that kind of things. So play around with it a bit until you find something that kind of suits your needs. This specific model has a very nice pose again. I'm quite a big fan. I know people have been hating a bit on the Assault Intercessors, and specifically for Blood Angels, they're not really seen as the best troops. But in terms of the actual models and the actual Intercessors and how they look, I'm quite a fan of it. I think they look pretty badass. But yeah, so heading into the final one here, just about done. As you guys can see, it's quite a simple process, can be assembled quite easily, and very good models to kind of start off with. If you're new to the hobby and you just want to get going, these ones are not too complicated and they're pretty straightforward. So it's kind of easy to ease yourself into it. just quickly in terms of this video and of my channel, this is obviously the first one that I'm putting up. So for anyone watching this, please feel free to just leave me some constructive criticism. If you guys enjoyed the video, obviously give it a like and a subscribe towards the end. But also feel free to tell me, what can I do to improve, what can I do to make it a little bit better. I'm very open to any of those kind of things. I would love to hear a bit more in that sense. But yeah, here we are, just finishing it off. Once again, we've only got the arms left. Playing around a bit with this base just to see. As you can see, the specific model is a bit more leany, almost falling forward. So yeah, it was a little bit of a strange one. Obviously want to make sure it's balanced, that it's not weird, and that it kind of makes sense when you're looking at the model. So yeah, this one is pretty straightforward in terms of the arms, no issues there. Happy with the pose, nice and aggressive model. Yeah, and we're just about done with this one and with them as a whole. I'm going to have a section right at the end where I put all the models together so you can have a look at what they look like as an actual squad. But yeah, if you guys like this kind of build along videos, also let me know, and then I'll know to make a few more of those. I've got quite a few models that I acquired now for my Blood Angels, so I'm probably going to be putting up a few more videos regarding those in Space Marines. But I'm also thinking of acquiring a different army soon, maybe Necrons, or maybe I'm not really sure, Necrons or something else. The new Necrons are really intriguing, the one that came out now with Indomitus. I'm kind of digging the look of the Death Guard as well. That's brand new now, obviously, at the time of recording. But it would be nice to do something else that's not too Space Marine. Not that Death Guard is too Space Marine at the moment. So yeah, just making sure everything fits. I think the left arm was giving me a bit of trouble. It wasn't sliding in properly. There was a bit of a gap there. But I eventually got it in and it got it sorted out. So I'm happy with it. Finishing off the power pack there at the end, and all done. And here we have the full squad battle ready and ready to hit the the painting section. Thank you so much for joining the video. I hope you guys found a little bit of value in terms of assembly. Please drop me a comment below, tell me what you guys are busy working on at the moment. I'm assuming you're doing Space Marines. What chapter are you thinking of doing? And if you made it this far, please consider giving this video a like and my channel a subscribe if this provided any value to you guys. I'm planning a lot of regular content that's going to be on its way. Let me know if you like these kind of build along videos, and I'll make a point to make a bit more of these as well. But I'll see you guys next time, and remember, Emperor protects.